So good morning, friends, online friends as well. And online friends, if you could type hi, I would know that I'm reaching you. My voice is reaching you. Chaliye, let's shut our eyes and chant. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. How many of you guys like try meditate on a regular basis? Any amongst you? Good, yeah. Who all kabhi kabar? That's like most of us. Huh? So I've also been in the class. Barely, yeah. Come on. Barely. But it's a good thing overall, but it's tough. It's particularly tough to stick to a routine. So I've, tried my hand at some of these apps that facilitate guided meditation. Sattva and another one, Headspace. Dono achhi hain, you know? So you can, if you are like struggling with it, these are things you can try, use. This is not a sponsored comment, mere bete. I mean, if that is what you're implying. Huh? मैं कहाँ श्री श्री रविशंकर को बॉदर करूंगा. चलिए. Will we be covering starting chapters of sociology and science methods etc. in class? Definitely. Okay, definitely. Only later, आगे पीछे, but we'll definitely be doing that, Mohi. So we were with social movements. I'm skipping the revision bit for today so that we can cover more ground. What is the last thing we had discussed in social movements? Different theories of social movements. ठीक है. Give me very quickly an overview of the strain theory. नील जे स्मेल्जर क्या क्या चीजों की बात करती है वो? कितने? 6, namely conduciveness, strain, generalized belief, mobilization. एक ही पढ़ा था. Very good. A precipitating factor. A failure of social control. Very well. Chaliye. Where were we? Here. Moving on. Life cycle of a social movement. Life cycle of a social movement. So social movement, friends, any social movement, it is but obvious. It passes through several stages. It is not a one-day affair. Over time, it becomes more formalized, more concretized. So how a social movement passes through various phases in the course of its evolution has been understood, or what we call the life cycle of a social movement has been understood by various scholars like Charles Tilly, Herbert Blumer, All right. So they have proposed the following stages of a social movement. The first stage is, of course, that of emergence. What do we mean with that a social movement is at the stage of emergence? Matlab, the grievances, the hurt, the sense of deprivation is now beginning to be felt. So some sense of being disadvantaged by a segment of the society, some sort of strain or discomfort with the prevailing arrangements is now begun to be experienced by several people in the society. That is the most initial stage of a social movement. ठीक? Over time, a social movement will coalesce. Have you heard the word coalescence before? या coalesce करना? कहां पे, किस संदर्भ में, in which context, and what does it mean? In English, water droplets, so tiny droplets, they coalesce in clouds to form bigger water droplets. So coalesce का मतलब होता है to come together, to form a kind of a larger and a more well structured kind of a arrangement. Are you with me? So या फिर हम बोलते हैं कि जो क्या बोलते हैं वो जेली है ना, it the particles coalesce, they join together, come together to form jelly. मतलब तो coalesce का मतलब होता है to start taking, to take shape. Literal meaning coalesce का होता है to take shape. ठीक है? So at the stage of coalescence, the movement now begins to take shape, literally. What do we mean when we say it starts taking shape? Matlab, now the problems are clearly identified. At this stage, the problems will be identified. What is it that the underlying problem is? We will, what do we say? Toy with various possible solutions. कि हम क्या कर सकते हैं, ये दिक्कत है और ये किया जा सकता है. Protests and agitations begin to be launched. So some expression of that discontent now becomes more visible, takes on a visible form. ठीक? So underlying problem क्या है, specific grievances क्या हैं, possible solutions क्या हैं, all of that. Clear? The next stage is what we call bureaucratization. Bureaucratization मतलब अब एक more clear hierarchy starts getting developed. The organization starts developing a very, very well-defined structure in that sense, including a hierarchy of officials. So now a clear leadership will emerge. कि भैया, he is the karta dharta or the main guy, the undisputed face of the movement. Are you with me? So a clear leadership will emerge. The degree of bureaucratization or formalization will be more or less. Some movements are formalized or bureaucratized to a greater degree, some to a lesser degree. But some semblance of organization is required. Right? So in some movements, for example, they may establish or register a संस्था, कोई society, trust, इस टाइप की बॉडी एस्टैब्लिश कर देंगे. आर यू विद मी? फंड्स कैसे रेज होंगे ये आइडेंटिफाई हो जाएगा. ठीक है, हम चंदा लेंगे, जनता से लेंगे, कॉर्पोरेट्स को रीच आउट करेंगे. सो चैनल्स ऑफ योर फंडिंग विल बी आइडेंटिफाइड एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. ऑफिस बेयरर्स होंगे, जो संस्था बनेगी, लेट अस से इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन हमने बना दी, अब उसके कुछ ऑफिस बेयरर्स होंगे कि ट्रेजरर ये है, जनरल सेक्रेटरी ये है ना, स्पोक्स पर्सन ये हैं, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. ठीक है? दिस इज द स्टेज ऑफ ब्यूरोक्रेटाइजेशन. It's still visible, I hope. The next stage is very crucial. Matlab, what is the outcome of those protests and agitations? Okay. So there can be various outcomes. One outcome can be success. Another outcome can be wonderful. Failure. Success meaning what? If the movement achieves its goals, the objectives that it has set for itself, that is success. तो अगर हम इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन में हम डिमांड कर रहे थे कि अ जन लोकपाल बिल बी पास्ड, एंड इफ अ जन लोकपाल बिल इज पास्ड, दैट इज सक्सेस ऑफ द मूवमेंट. Failure if the goals of the objectives of the movement remain unaddressed, unmet, that is failure. Theoretically this should be a comprehensive twofold categorization. या तो कोई चीज सक्सेस होगी या फेलियर, बट नहीं, और भी पॉसिबल आउटकम्स है. Another possible outcome is what we call co-optation. Another possible outcome is repression. And another possible outcome is that the movement becomes mainstream. ठीक? Success meaning the movement achieves its goals. Failure meaning that the movement does not achieve its goals. Co-optation means that the leadership of the movement becomes a part of the prevailing arrangements. Now, is that good for the movement or bad for the movement? It may be interpreted positively for the movement that its leadership is now become, a stakeholder in power, that the existing system has been compelled to accommodate our leaders. Yes or no? But a more appropriate interpretation is that it is detrimental to the movement, because it is seen as the leadership, compromising with the ideals of the objectives and goals of the movement without they having been met for the satisfaction of their personal ambition. तो वो क्या हो गया? कोऑप्टेशन हो गया. तो अगर मैंने कहा था कि मैं अपने बच्चों की सौगंध खाता हूं कि पॉलिटिक्स नहीं ज्वाइन करूंगा, and then I go on to become a chief minister with the support of the parties I was attacking for being the most corrupt, that is what? Co-optation. Yes or no? You become a part of the system. So rather than trying to thwart it, change it, make it more, or addressing certain grievances in it, then you have become a part and parcel of it. और फिर मेरे पे और मेरे मिनिस्टर्स पे लगेंगे करप्शन के केसेस. वाह वाह. Right? The reference, for those not in the know, was to the leadership of the India Against Corruption movement, specifically Kejriwal ji, right, and his ilk. They became mainstream politicians. बंगला नहीं लूंगा, बंगला ले लिया. अलायंस नहीं करूंगा, अलायंस कर ली. गाड़ी नहीं लूंगा, गाड़ी ले ली. सब कुछ है ना. चलिए, let's not get too personal. Explain co-optation again. I was still doing it and you type explain it again, but nevertheless, so co-optation means that the leadership of a movement is accommodated in the prevailing structures of power and authority. That is what is like Arvind Kejriwal ji, who was at the helm of the India Against Corruption movement. He became a part of the political system. No, don't write Kejriwal ji's example, but you get the drift, right? Avoid giving examples of living politicians. So charismatic leader, not Narendra Modi. Jawaharlal Nehru, safe and sound and dead. ठीक है? One sec, bete, huh? Repression means what? That the movement is crushed by the use of force, typically by the state, like what happened with Baba Ramdev ji. Okay? So the state has a lot of power. It can unleash the police force on you. It can disperse the crowds which gather for support to the movement. It can slap all sorts of charges against the leaders or the participants in the movement. Yes or no? All of that is a form of repression. Clear? So the Indian state tried to repress or use force against protesters during the Farm Bill protests, Shaheen Bagh protests, several such. I don't remember Shaheen Bagh exactly or not, but CANRC, JNU protests, force was used, right? So in several such cases, force has been used. Okay? About degree of force will vary. Sometimes it's water cannons or whatever. Sometimes it is slapping of, like the JNU protesting students were branded as anti-national. Sedition charges were leveled against some student leaders like Umar Khalid and Kanhaiya, etc. All sorts of charges. All of that is a form of repression. Theek? And finally, going mainstream. Ayushi is asking me to explain co-optation, I suspect, in easy language. इतना technical words क्यों? So co-optation means जब movement के leaders को existing power structures का हिस्सा बना लिया जाए. ठीक? I hope that is clear, बेटे. Where were we? We were mainstreaming. Mainstreaming means that the goals and objectives of the movement are adopted by the wider society as its own. So they don't remain confined to the participants of those movements, but they get wider endorsement by the society at large. For example, Nirbhaya protests, RG Kar Medical College Kolkata protests, right? These were against against the lack of safety for women in public places, educational institutions, etc. These, if we say that now all citizens and the system, everybody acknowledges that yes, we need to put systems in place so that women are safe in public places, safe in evening and night times if they are out, then that would be mainstreaming. ठीक? So ये सब होगा, then the movement में decline or end. ठीक? It may just go into oblivion. It may lose steam, anything. If it has met its objectives, then the reason for existence itself is now this thing. ठीक है? This is what is the life cycle of a social movement. An important role in a social movement is played by ideology. Forget social movements for a while. Tell me, what do you understand by this word ideology? सुना होगा? Political context में सुना होगा, वैसे भी सुना होगा, subject पढ़ते हुए सुना होगा. What is ideology? Way of thinking about something. It is a very incomplete explanation of what an ideology is, with due respect. A set of ideas which we adhere to. So I have a lot of ideas that I believe in the powers of Sri Ram. Okay, I believe that Communist Party of India is a wonderful political party. I believe that aloo ki sabji is awesome. Is this an ideology? No? क्यों? ये सारे मेरे ideas हैं वाकई में. It is a set of related ideas. a set of related ideas. ये तो assorted हो गए ना, ठीक है? हाँ, continue, brother. Very good. Sorry, that is an incorrect understanding of the term ideology. Not a correct understanding. Innovative, but incorrect. Huh. Basically, it is a set of related ideas that help us make sense of or interpret the world around us. It is a set of ideas, beliefs, thoughts, assumptions, propositions. Formal definition से लिखवा दूं. An ideology is a set of coherent, that they should gel together, not like कि आलू की सब्जी अच्छी है and Communist Party of India गंदी है. Right? It is a set of coherent ideas, values, beliefs, and thoughts that enable us to understand and interpret reality. Can you give me an idea? Can you give me an example of any ideology? और तगड़ी बोलो. मार्क्सिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी, फेमिनिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी, हिंदुत्व आइडियोलॉजी, ये सब क्या है? आइडियोलॉजीज है. ये बताओ, व्हेन वी से आइडियोलॉजी, डज इट हेल्प अस टू अंडरस्टैंड द एंटायर रियलिटी और बिट्स ऑफ रियलिटी? In other words, if I say feminist ideology or Marxist ideology, can using it I understand family also, religion also, political system also, inequality also, or not? According to the proponent, so I am a proponent of an ideology. Does it help me understand the whole world or only pieces of it? Whole world, yeah. Definitely the whole world. An ideology helps me to interpret every aspect of reality. Please appreciate. क्या मैं फेमिनिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी के लेंस से सब चीजें नहीं समझ सकता? क्या मैं मार्क्सिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी के लेंस से फैमिली और रिलीजन और पॉलिटिक्स और इकोनॉमी सब चीजें और एजुकेशन सिस्टम नहीं समझ सकता? डेफिनेटली समझ सकता. यस और नो? मार्क्सिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी क्या बताएगी? क्लास डायमेंशन देखो. एजुकेशन सिस्टम में किसका उल्लू सीधा हो रहा है और किसका उल्लू बन रहा है? कैपिटलिस्ट का सीधा हो रहा है, वर्किंग क्लास का बन रहा है. राइट? इकोनॉमी में भी यही हो रहा है, और तो और फैमिली तक में यही हो रहा है. हमारी माएं वर्कर्स पैदा कर रही हैं. राइट? तो आइडियोलॉजी जो है वो पूरी रियलिटी को एक्सप्लेन करती है. बट देयर इज अ ह्यूज but in the sense it does not help us see all expressions of that reality. It gives us a blinkered view or interpretation of reality. The best analogy which I resort to frequently to understand ideology is that ideology is like a colored chashma. Are you with me? It's like a colored chashma. So you can see when you wear that chashma, for the uninitiated, chashma is specs or glasses. So when you wear that set of glasses, you can see everything, but you see it in the tone of which the glass is made. So if I wear a lal chashma, or if I see the world through Marxist ideology, I will see everywhere what? Khunam khun. I will see the whole world red, characterized by class inequality, exploitation, conflict, and struggle. Now, if I change that chashma and I wear a Bhagwa chashma, yes or no? Through the lens of Hindutva ideology, I will see religious polarization, atrocities against Hindus. Hindu khatre mein hai. Are you with me? So depending on the chashma, ideology is like that chashma which helps us see the world clearly, but in a certain version, or a colored or biased, one-sided kind of a interpretation of various phenomena. Yes or no? तो ये होती है आइडियोलॉजी. ठीक है, एक रंगीन चश्मा. Tejas is asking, is success and mainstreaming in the case of a social movement, is it the same? Is success and mainstreaming of a social movement the same? Conceptually, one can draw a difference. Success is if the specific goals and objectives with which the movement was launched, they are achieved. That is success. Mainstreaming means that even if those specific goals are not met as an immediate outcome of the movement, but the entire society comes to adopt those goals as its own. सब लोग विश्वास करने लगे आपकी बात में. तो, और if I were to rephrase it, I will say mainstreaming can be seen as a kind of success. कि आप जो आप कह रहे थे वो पूरा समाज वो चाह रहा है, ठीक है, बट जो आप स्पेसिफिक बदलाव चाह रहे थे वो शायद नहीं मिला. इन दैट सेंस यू आर नॉट सक्सेस, है ना. इसी तरह कोऑप्टेशन एंड रिप्रेशन कैन बी सीन एज अ काइंड ऑफ फेलियर. साफ बात है, ठीक है, बट conceptually we can draw a difference. Now, आइडियोलॉजी का सोशल मूवमेंट से क्या रिश्ता है? कहां गया? या आइडियोलॉजी एंड सोशल मूवमेंट्स. तेरा मेरा रिश्ता क्या? ला इल्ला इल्लल्लाह. What is the relationship between an ideology and social movements? बताइए. We've understood what ideology is. We've also fairly understood in yesterday's lecture particularly what social movements are. How are the two related? Bitya? Very well put. Ideology is a driver of social movements. Why do you say that? We can mobilize people, you are saying, based on an ideological core. Very well put. Ideology plays an important role in developing a generalized belief. Or any other insights? Not the best way to frame it. With due respect, that's not the best way to frame it. What I will say is that ideology gives an overall framework for a social movement. Ideology provides the framework using which the problems can be identified. हर चीज में ideology help करेगी. It helps us to identify the nature of the problem. It helps us to identify the methods that the movement should adopt. It provides the movement with a clear program, what socio-economic program that it seeks to implement. सो क्या कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन होना चाहिए, क्या हमारे अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं ऑफ द मूवमेंट, ऑल ऑफ दीज आर इन्फॉर्म्ड बाय द आइडियोलॉजी गवर्निंग इट. Ideology will also help to, what should I say, justify or legitimize the methods, the tactics that are adopted by the movement. For example, Naxalite ideology justifies the use of violence. That use of violence is legitimate. We must annihilate the class enemy. And that can be only done through if we pick up arms. Yes or no? But Gandhian ideology, in contrast, champions non-violence as the preferred mode of, attaining one's goals. Moral persuasion, non-violence, insistence on truth, या सत्याग्रह. ठीक है? सो आइडियोलॉजी एक कोहेरेंट फ्रेमवर्क देता है जो हर एस्पेक्ट ऑफ मूवमेंट को अफेक्ट करेगा. आइडियोलॉजी ऑल्सो सर्व्स एज अ वाइटल ग्लू. It's like a glue or adhesive which binds the people together. So, हर व्यक्ति का अपना जीवन होता है. हिंदुत्व आइडियोलॉजी के भतेर फॉलोअर्स हैं, बिलोंगिंग टू डिफरेंट कास्ट, बिलोंगिंग टू डिफरेंट इकोनॉमिक पोजीशन. Yes or no? Different regions, different linguistic backgrounds. What binds them? It is the commitment to Hindutva ideology. Are you with me? Who defines or lays down the ideology or identifies the ideology of a movement? The leadership does that. And who follows the ideology or adheres to the ideology? Only the followers. The leaders also must adhere to the ideology once it is laid down. साफ बात है. Yes or no? So of course it is the leadership which will outline or identify the governing ideology of a social movement. But once it has been laid down, identified, then it has to be adhered to by all participants, चाहे leaders हो, कोई office bearers हो, या ordinary participant हो. ठीक है? So therefore, friends, an ideology is considered as one of the key governing principles of a social movement. It is what constitutes the, theoretical core of a social movement. तो movement के जो different चीजें ना, all of them are an expression of that ideological core और अंडरलाइंग आइडियोलॉजी. ठीक? इसलिए आइडियोलॉजी सोशल मूवमेंट के लिए बहुत जरूरी, अहम, डिफाइनिंग कंपोनेंट है. Mugdha is sharing an example of mainstreaming and asking if it is a correct example. She's saying, can it be said to stop rape cases? People are protesting, various kinds of demands are being made, but we also see ads on television promoting women's safety through Rakhi ads, Ola Uber ads, etc. I've not seen these specific ads, but I get the drift. You're suggesting some ads hint at or vouch for women's safety, right? Or you had campaigns, I think in Delhi, auto walas, they put stickers that this auto is safe for women, something of this sort. So that would be very, it would be a red flag of sorts in itself. Why do they expressly mention it? In any case, right? Such campaigns in media or in social life, they can be considered as an appropriate example of mainstreaming. All right. That is about ideology and social movements. Nextly, friends, give a subheading. It's there in the handouts though. How many of you, forget the subheadings and all, how many of you have participated in any social movements, protests, agitations, etc.? Share your experiences. Which have you participated in? What? क्या किया? कोविड के टाइम लाइब्रेरी नहीं ओपन कर रहे थे तो इन्होंने उसके खिलाफ प्रोटेस्ट किया था. बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स थे जो प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे थे कि लाइब्रेरी खोलो खोलो, और हॉस्टल के मेस भी नहीं खोले थे तो उसमें भी आपने प्रोटेस्ट किया था. ब्रदर, सॉरी, कॉलेज फेयरवेल नहीं हुआ था. सो वी प्रोटेस्ट एट द ड्रॉप ऑफ अ हैट, है ना. हाँ, तो उसके लिए प्रोटेस्ट किया था. Any should I say, social issues which are of like wider import or greater salience for the society at large? You selfish people. हाँ हाँ. So there were protests during COVID against the lockdown that was imposed. Brother, you're all, children of COVID in a way. Yeah. कौन सा है? बलिया. हाँ, बलिया में. हाँ. डिवाइड कर देंगे टाउन को. So you guys protested against the historic division of Balia, partition of Balia, okay, with a railway line, and prevented that decision from being taken. Very well, brother. You sure would have participated. I don't know why, but tell me. हाँ. तो आप भी बैठ गए. फार्मर प्रोटेस्ट चल रहे थे, वहां से गुजर रहे थे, तो ये भी वहां बैठ गए कि लगे हाथ हम भी बहती गंगा में हाथ धो लेते हैं. कोल्ड ड्रिंक वगैरह, कोल्ड ड्रिंक समोसे मिल रहे थे. सो ही सैट इन द फार्मर्स प्रोटेस्ट. Students online are sharing they've participated. Thank you for this saving grace, what I would call it, anti-liquor protests, Nirbhaya protests, CAA protests, TSPSC paper leak protests. अभी बिहार में भी हो रहे थे regarding the PSC exam, है ना. हाँ. How many of you have not? How many of you have initiated any sort of initiated any kind of protests against things that you felt dear? How many of you felt dearly about several issues? Raise your hands. सामाजिक व्यवस्था को देख के दिल उचकता है कि ये गलत है, वो गलत है. सरकार को देख के, सामाजिक व्यवस्था को. Raise your hands. Seems all of us. How many of you, despite having this sense of angst, dissatisfaction with the prevailing arrangements, have never gotten down to participation? Raise your hands. क्यों? पढ़े लिखे लोग हो, well informed, educated, aware log ho, what prevents this category of people, our kinds? Oh, it's this thing, I think. One sec, huh? It's making noise. Why you? But I don't know how to undo it. Don't laugh, rather help me if you can with it. Yeah, little. चलिए, let's see if it happens again. We'll try to address it. Let's try ignore it. ये बताइए. हाँ, so why haven't you guys done anything for those issues which you have felt fairly strongly about? हाँ बेटे, आप तो चाय समोसे खा के आए हो ना. You did participate. हाँ.
और ये दे देना, पर बाद में उसमें मुझे लगता है अकाउंटेबिलिटी ट्रांसपेरेंसी तो है ही नहीं, पता नहीं चलो लेटर कहाँ जाए, मुझे लग रहा है।
So one of the students, he felt about something he saw, a child in a state of deprivation. He wrote to the authorities and there was no response. And then you just felt that there's nothing you can do about it. Very well, brother. धरना प्रदर्शन क्यों नहीं किया? अच्छा किया था, तो मैं तो उनसे बात कर रहा हूं ना जिन्होंने नहीं किया, उनको बोलने दो बिटिया, क्यों नहीं आवाज उठाई? जा नहीं सकते थे, क्यों नहीं जा सकते थे? RG Kar medical protest, that's a cause you supported, but what prevented your participation? It was far off. How do I go? What else? Time constraint. Sir, UPSC aspirants हैं, साफ बात है, या तो ये धरना प्रदर्शन कर लें या पढ़ लें और करियर बना लें, और सर मैं अकेले क्या कर लूंगी, भीड़ कहां से लाऊंगी, पैसे कहां से लाऊंगी, ऐसे लोगों को चाय समोसे कहां से खिलवाऊंगी? Yes or no? All of these constraints. Absolutely, friends. Brother? हाँ सर, लाठी पड़ गई तो? Yes or no? The police may well do a lathi charge on the bheed. The police may slap, the administration may slap charges against you. And मेरे को तो करियर बनाना है, चार्जेस लग गए तो मैं सरकारी नौकर कैसे बनूंगा? Yes or no? So मेरी जो महत्वाकांक्षा एक नौकर बनने की सरकारी, how do I, that will get compromised. बिटिया, घर वाले बुला लेंगे, वो कहेंगे तू कहां जा रही है भीड़ भड़ाके में, तुझे छेड़ देगा कोई. Yes or no? You are going to protest for women's safety and देखो कोई छेड़ देगा. हाँ, what will we do with that as a family? So it is our bounden responsibility as your pita and your bhai, people with muscles, that we protect you, do your raksha. Yes or no? Absolutely. So friends, social movements, though what we infer from this discussion is, though many of us, many citizens are acutely aware of the social conditions, they also feel strongly about certain social issues. Participation, initiation, and sustenance of social movements poses several challenges. Several challenges. One challenge which was just mentioned was mobilizing various resources. As we discussed, social movements are quite resource intensive. They require public participation. They require media spotlight. They require finances, and so on and so forth. Not all people are able to generate or put together these resources. Yes or no? Another thing, friends, people often develop an inertia. Lack of motion. क्या है वो golden rule? A thing in motion stays in motion and a thing in at rest remains at rest. तो वो rest वाली बात है. Unless and until pushed, people kind of, we become accustomed to the prevailing system, prevailing arrangements, even if they are discomforting. ये नहीं है कि तकलीफ नहीं हो रही है, तकलीफ की आदत हो जाती है. करप्शन थी, सालों से थी, भुगत रहे थे लोग, आदत हो गई थी, इनर्शिया था, एक्सेप्टेंस हो गई थी सिस्टम की. Yes or no? Change can be unnerving, because change is, or what will happen once change takes place, is unknown. It is in the territory of unknown. The present, even if uncomfortable, it is at least, there is a degree of familiarity, and that provides a sense of security, because of which people develop an inertia. Societies, communities, individuals develop a sort of inertia. Thirdly, friends, please appreciate that any system which stays in place for too long develops its own legitimacy. Rationale, justification. So the prevailing arrangements are often seen as right, desirable, natural, obvious way of doing things. So how do you challenge that widespread legitimacy? So Iran में जब they were protests by certain women against hijab, there were so many who were supporting the regime कि महिला है, obviously in a public place वो hijab पहनेगी, that she should go covered because that is the norm that has been in existence, being followed since so long. Yes or no? लोगों के माइंडसेट वैसे ही डेवलप हो जाता है जैसी सामाजिक व्यवस्था होती है उसको लेजिटिमाइज एंड जस्टिफाई करते हुए. Social movements, as we discussed, may face repression, opposition. साफ बात है, some people are benefiting from the prevailing arrangements. They would not want them to change. अगर आप मानते हो कास्ट सिस्टम एक्सप्लॉइटेटिव है, खराब है, but then the some castes who are benefiting, the higher caste, they are the beneficiaries of the caste system. So they would have a vested interest in the perpetuation of caste inequalities. Yes or no? Likewise, men would want patriarchal structures to continue to prevail in society. Capitalists would want economic inequalities to be perpetuated because they are simply the beneficiaries of that. So these segments, those who are the dominant sections in the society, they have a vested interest in the perpetuation of the prevailing arrangements. And mind you, who is more powerful? Those who are these dominant sections or those who are trying to initiate change? Zahir hai, dominant sections. They have more typically finances, money पैसा ज्यादा होगा, political connections ज्यादा होंगे, मीडिया पे अपना कंट्रोल या एक्सेस ज्यादा होगा. So simply put, friends, social movements are often up against a mighty enemy or a mightier enemy. Yes or no? So when these vested interests try to crush any efforts to bring about change, that can be a challenge, huge challenge. Like one of the students is sharing, during RG car protests, students were scared of state action and they were also attacked by goons. So you will have muscle power, these dominant sections. They will use Sam Dam Dand Bhed to prevent change. Are you with me? So there can be repressive action, attempts to maintain dominance by vested interests. That could be a challenge. Another important challenge is what we call the free rider problem. Free rider पता है? कॉलेज प्रोजेक्ट्स अगर किए हैं तो पता होगा. कॉलेज प्रोजेक्ट्स में हमेशा 4 में से 1 या 2 तो फ्री राइडर होते हैं. फ्री राइडर का मतलब क्या है? ग्रुप प्रोजेक्ट है ना, सबको जो मार्क्स मिलेंगे मुझे भी मिल जाएंगे. वो लड़की ज्यादा पढ़ाकू है, वो तो अच्छा बनाएगी, वन ऑफ माय प्रोजेक्ट टीम मेंबर्स, तो मैं क्यों मेहनत करूं? सो यू वांट टू रीप द बेनिफिट्स विदाउट हैविंग टू मेक एफर्ट. यस और नो? Similarly, in social movements, you may identify with a cause. You want to get rid of corruption. You want women's safety on the streets. But why should I get my hands dirty? Why should I waste a day? कौन दिल्ली की धूप में लाल किला मैदान में जाएगा? जा रहे हैं ना 40-50 हजार लोग. तो मैं अपना बैठ के फेसबुक पे लाइक अन्ना हजारे, लाइक आरजी कार प्रोटेस्ट दबा दूंगा. So we want, or many, or if a growing number of people have that free rider attitude, then actual participation will dwindle. Yes or no? सबको बेनिफिट चाहिए, किसी को मेहनत नहीं करनी. दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम. Another problem, friends, to sustain the enthusiasm of the participants over long periods of time practically is one of the biggest challenges that many movements face. People tire, yeah, simply. अब तुम करप्शन से थके हुए हो, मतलब तुम करप्शन से गुस्सा हो, तुम एक दिन जाओगे, अन्ना जी ने बुलाया इस संडे, फिर अगले संडे बुला लिया, 3 संडे चले जाओगे, तुमको यार ये तो उठने का नाम नहीं ले रहा, सरकार बज नहीं कर रही. एंड द गवर्नमेंट्स ऑफन रिलाई ऑन दिस दैट पीपल विल टायर. तो शाहीन बाग वगैरह में यही हो रहा था. उन्होंने कहा ठीक है बैठे हैं, बैठे रहेंगे. फिर वो कोविड आया, वो हट भी गए. ठीक है, वरना कब तक बैठे रहेंगे. तुम तो इग्नोर कर दो, इनएक्शन कर दो, and the movement might get dispersed. The energies of the people might get dissipated. So people tend to get on with their daily lives rather than continuously actively participate in social movements. Yes or no? So ensuring continued enthusiasm and participation is a challenge. ठीक है. A movement may see, movement is a work in progress. It is not a settled thing. Typically these are ongoing challenges to the state and prevailing structures. Because they are ongoing, because there is potential that whoever is at the helm of them may become important socially, politically, publicly, there may be a leadership tussle, people vying with each other for control of the movement. It could be for personal glory, it could also be for due to ideological differences. Yes or no? कई कारण हो सकते हैं. सो मूवमेंट में फ्रैगमेंट कौन सी थी वो तुम्हारी, आई थिंक ब्रह्मो समाज. आफ्टर रॉय उसके टुकड़े 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 हो गए खूब सारे. उन्होंने कहा नहीं आदि ब्रह्मो समाज नहीं, उन्होंने कहा नहीं ये ओरिजिनल ब्रह्मो समाज. ऐसे 4 वर्जन्स बना दिए देवेंद्रनाथ टैगोर और जो भी लोग थे. यस और नो? So that can adversely affect a movement. Not having a unified, clear, in control kind of a leadership. ठीक है? That can weaken the movement. Social movements are often led by charismatic leaders, and charisma by definition is short-lived. So if the charisma of the leaders that shine goes away from the leadership, yes or no? So if the followers stop perceiving the leadership as charismatic, then they will lose interest or enthusiasm for the cause as well. अगर अन्ना हजारे पे करप्शन के छींटे लग जाते, पता चलता जब वो सिपाही थे इंडियन आर्मी में, उन्होंने थोड़े पैसे बनाए थे, so we would have lost that shine, and that would have killed the India against corruption movement. Clear? In that sense, many of these social movements become very leader dependent rather than the cause or the program guiding it. It is heavily dependent on the personality of the leader. So if the leader gets co-opted, leader gets corrupted, leader gets or loses charisma, then the movement will suffer. ठीक. Gitanjali is asking on Twitter, people do hashtag me too. Can it be included in? She's saying people do hashtag me too movements. Can it be included in social movements? Is twittering hashtag me too a social movement? Twittering away to glory? Is it or is it not? Absolutely, it is. It is, in fact, what brings us to our next topic. It is a what we call new social movements. New social movements क्या होती हैं, friends? These are basically a set of, protests, agitations that rocked first world countries, developed, rich, first world, Western nations during 1960s and 70s. उनके लिए ये टर्म कॉइन हुई थी न्यू सोशल मूवमेंट्स. The set of protests, agitations, or collective actions that sprang up in the first world, rich, capitalist, liberal, Western democracies. Those are what we call, what are referred to as new social movements. ठीक है? For example, there were anti-war protests. USA में or particularly regard against involvement of USA in the Vietnam War. There were massive protests against that. वो क्या है? New social movement है. There were campaigns for global peace. क्या है? Campaigns for nuclear disarmament, universal nuclear disarmament. क्या है? New social movements. The moot question is, what's new in the new social movements? Why are we calling them new social movements instead of, just vanilla social movements? Any guesses? What's new about the new social movements? The issues. What are these new issues that are being taken up? You're absolutely on the right track though. क्या चीज? हाँ, global warming के against campaigns can be considered. You are giving me examples, but how are they fundamentally new or different? Or let me phrase it this way: if you have new social movements, that implies certain movements are old social movements. New social movements differ in some fundamental ways from the old social movements. He has said they differ in terms of issues. Old movements dealt with some other kinds of issues. New movements deal with a different types of issues. And he's absolutely right. मेरे बेटे सब समझ गए, आप नहीं समझे, है ना? क्या? नहीं, क्या नहीं समझे? क्या? नहीं. The broader point is, again I request you, please raise your hand. That will be very helpful the day I'm successful in that. Okay? What? So you're absolutely right. New social movements raise new kinds of issues. Old social movements were primarily centered around economic interests. They were centered around economic interests. फॉर एग्जाम्पल वर्किंग क्लास मूवमेंट जो है, दैट्स एन ओल्ड सोशल मूवमेंट. उनको क्या चाहिए? हायर वेजेस, रिड्यूस्ड वर्किंग आवर्स, बोनस, बेटर वर्क कंडीशंस, सिक्योरिटी, regulated hours, accident coverage, so on and so forth. ले देके पैसा. Peasant uprisings and movements are old movements. उनको क्या चाहिए? Land ownership, rent regulation. ठीक है? Peasant movements are what? भारत में भी हुई थी बहुत सारी peasant movements. खेड़ा सत्याग्रह, बारदोली सत्याग्रह, ऑल इंडिया किसान सभा एंड द वर्क्स. इनकी क्या डिमांड थी? इकोनॉमिक in the main. So the old movements were primarily focused on economic interests being secured. New social movements are talking more about cultural and quality of life issues. For instance, they are talking about stuff like respect for rights, human dignity. It's not just about economic well-being. LGBT राइट्स मूवमेंट क्या है? पैसा चाहिए? नहीं. हमें खुले में चौड़ से अपनी आइडेंटिटी एक्सप्रेस करने का, टू बी एक्सेप्टेड इन दी सोसाइटी, to be treated with respect and dignity, despite, or that our sexuality should be given equal respect in society. It should be accepted by the society. ये चाहिए हमें. Right to marry चाहिए. Yes or no? पैसा नहीं चाहिए हमें. ये फार्मर्स और वर्कर्स को पैसा चाहिए था. Are you with me? So ये जो ओल्ड मूवमेंट्स है ना, दे आर बेसिकली मटीरियलिस्ट in their orientation. New social movements को हम मानते हैं, these are post materialist considerations. और it's a full belly syndrome. ये जिनका पेट खाली है उनकी प्रोटेस्ट एंड एजिटेशन है. जिनका पेट भरा हुआ है उनको और चीजें चाहिए. मुझे साफ हवा चाहिए, एनवायरमेंटल मूवमेंट्स, मुझे विश्व शांति चाहिए. आर यू विद मी? तो वर्ल्ड पीस, न्यूक्लियर डिसआर्मामेंट, पोस्ट मटीरियलिस्ट यानी फुल बेली, एक तरह से ये एम्प्टी बेली, ओल्ड वाली एम्प्टी बेली काइंड ऑफ फिनोमिना है. क्लियर? So broadly, friends, new movements raise two kinds of issues. Two kinds of issues were taken up by the new social movements. One, regarding the rights of the marginalized sections of the society. The rights of the marginalized sections of the society. Like LGBTQIA plus rights, the rights of racial minorities, the rights of religious minorities, immigrants, disabled, समाज के जो वंचित शोषित वर्ग होते हैं उनके राइट्स की बातें करती है. दूसरा, there is what are global issues. Global issues. Like ecological conservation, world peace, nuclear disarmament, ये सब क्या है? ग्लोबल इश्यूज है, क्लाइमेट चेंज। ठीक है, बहुत धन्यवाद भैया। Anvesha, we will come to your question as we proceed. It's an important question worthy of being addressed, but I'll take it up as we proceed. Also, friends, these movements were new in terms of the participation. The participants in the new social movements were decidedly younger in age than those in the old social movements. इनमें जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स होते थे ना, वो होते थे ऐसे 18 से 30 थे, क्या हैं, ठीक है, मतलब इट्स अ प्रेजेंट डे काइंड ऑफ अ टर्म. So 18, 30, 35 years olds, young adults, these are typically the participants in new social movements. Old social movements typically witnessed a more enthusiastic or wider participation of older generations. At least 40, typically 45 plus, 40, 45 plus kind of people would participate. And these newer participants were also better educated. They were more moneyed. Moneyed not as in rolling in money, but comfortable. Comfortable matlab what is called the new middle class. So they've earned money, working in corporates, working in a lot of them working in the service industries. That makes them acutely connected with the society. Working, for example, with NGOs or the civil society in general. Journalists, students, activists, teachers, right? These are the participants in the new social movements. Another new dimension of the new social movements, or what distinguishes them from the old ones, is a heavy reliance on technology, or rather new technologies, or more specifically information and communication technologies. They have been very well and fully harnessed by these new social movements. Are you with me? So in these movements, we will see a heavy reliance on viral trends. Hashtag Me Too. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Yes or no? तो वायरल कैंपेन्स होंगे, मीम्स के थ्रू प्रोपोगेट करेंगे, ऑनलाइन पेटिशन साइंस करेंगे. गो टू change.org. देखिए आप लोगों ने, एक वेबसाइट है, वहां पे यही चलता है. ठीक है, आप बोलो, आप साइन करो, आप कोई भी कॉज उठा के वो कर दोगे. मेरे हिसाब से ये नहीं होना चाहिए. सो एक मेट्रो बन रही थी मुंबई में, उससे वो आरए फॉरेस्ट वाज टू बी कट डाउन. उन्होंने कहा ये नहीं कटना चाहिए. ठीक है, सो यू लॉन्च अ सिग्नेचर कैंपेन, मोर एंड मोर पीपल साइनिंग अप, एक्सप्रेसिंग सपोर्ट. ठीक है, given that they make good use of new technologies, particularly mobile and internet, these movements are also more global in character. They are more global, meaning less localized. The old movements were quite localized. ठीक, these movements are also, kind of more decentralized. Old movements tended to develop very clear hierarchical bureaucratic structures. They would have a clearly identifiable leadership, which many of these new social movements lack. Hashtag Me Too movement का leader कौन है या key leader कौन है? We really don't know. There is no face, one specific face as the face of the Me Too movement, but it was all over the place, very successful. Yes or no? तो क्या था? उसके local chapters थे. इंडियन विमेन ने शुरू कर दिया, यूएस में विमेन ने शुरू कर दिया, पाकिस्तान में कर दिया, अलग अलग कंट्रीज ने कर दिया. तो नो क्लियरली आइडेंटिफाइबल सेंट्रल लीडरशिप, नो clear organization per se guiding it, decentralized, hyper, this thing, kind of spread out. These movements also tend to be characterized by greater speed. Thanks to the internet, there's that element of virality. So these movements are able to catch fire or spread at a much faster pace than the traditional movements or the old social movements. ठीक है, इसीलिए हम इनको क्या बोलते हैं? न्यू सोशल मूवमेंट्स. क्लियर? Cohen and Rai. Cohen and Rai, which I know some of you will find amusing because that's an Indian surname, criticize this categorization of certain movements as new. According to them, this distinction between so-called old and so-called new social movements is a very artificial one. You cannot have a clear bifurcation or distinction between the present day movements and the previous movements. Like Anvesha is asking, I'm coming to your question, the feminist movement, is it a new social movement or an old social movement? Chronologically speaking, it can be traced back to at least more than 150 years back in the West, or even in India to the times of Brahmo Samaj and Arya Samaj, earliest women's movements or organizations taking up women's issues. Yes or no? So in chronological sense, they seem to be old. But are they concerned only or even primarily about economic issues? No. They are a component, but not the sole. It's about women's safety also, dignity also, right to, reproductive autonomy also, right to sexual expression also. So many non-economic aspects are there, which the feminist movements worldwide, Me Too was not about economic dimension at all. Yes or no? Many movements which have come up later. For example, when we say movements like LGBT rights movement, civil rights or blacks ke rights ki movement, racial minorities ke, are they unconcerned about economic well-being? No. They are not solely concerned about economic well-being, but that is also an integral part of their demands or agenda. So for example, movements like, for empowering blacks, racial minorities ke rights, they would talk about, immigrant rights, they would talk about that they need to be integrated into the economic mainstream. Why should they not be given adequate jobs? So black civil rights movements will argue how blacks are underrepresented in, the corporate world, in government services. इसी तरह बहुत सारे जो इमिग्रेंट्स के राइट्स की बात करते हैं वो प्राइमरली या काफी हद तक बात करते हैं कि उनका इकोनॉमिक एक्सक्लूजन क्यों हो रहा है, बहिष्कार हो रहा है, कई लोग कर देते हैं, some sort of this thing. Yes or no? You can now, farmers movements we would have classified as economic, but it also used social media, new technologies. So this distinction between old and new is somewhat arbitrary and artificial. ठीक है, ये है अबाउट न्यू सोशल मूवमेंट्स. अगर हम एक्सेप्ट कर लें न्यू सोशल मूवमेंट्स की टर्मिनोलॉजी एंड कॉन्सेप्ट, इंडिया स्पेसिफिक न्यू सोशल मूवमेंट्स बताइए. इफ यू अंडरस्टूड द कॉन्सेप्ट, इंडिया स्पेसिफिक और एनी न्यू सोशल मूवमेंट्स in India. LGBT rights movement is a new social movement. Environmental movement like RA protests, starting from Chipko, even Chipko, है ना. So a whole gamut. Not ये नहीं है कि इंटरनेट नहीं था वो न्यू नहीं हो सकती, ठीक है. इवन 1960-70s में वेस्ट में भी इंटरनेट नहीं था, दुनिया में इंटरनेट नहीं था, ठीक है. बट दीज मूवमेंट्स फॉर ग्लोबल पीस, डिसआर्मामेंट एटसेट्रा, दे वर न्यू सोशल मूवमेंट्स. Anti-untouchability movement, again, it's a mixed bag. It's a very mixed bag. On the one hand, it is a very old identity, old social practice of untouchability which is sought to be addressed. But then the demand is what? Dignity, respect, equal participation, right? So it is a mixed bag kind of a thing. Hashtag Me Too in India is a clear example of a new social movement. ठीक है. हैशटैग BLM के जैसा, BLM इज ब्लैक लाइव्स मैटर, दलित लाइव्स मैटर मूवमेंट, ठीक है ना. तो हमारे दलित्स वर इंस्पायर्ड बाय द BLM मूवमेंट. उन्होंने कहा BLM, तो उन्होंने कहा नहीं, हम DLM भी, ठीक है. दलित लाइव्स आल्सो मैटर, ठीक है. मोर ऑन दैट इन पेपर 2 ऑफ कोर्स. एक क्वेश्चन आया था, आर सोशल मूवमेंट्स प्राइमोर्डियल इन मीन्स एंड प्रोग्रेसिव इन एजेंडा? आर सोशल मूवमेंट्स प्राइमोर्डियल इन मीन्स एंड progressive? Neer is asking which type of movement was non-aligned movement. To clarify, the non-aligned movement was not a social movement in the sociological sense of the term. It did not see mass participation and people expressing their grievances and trying to bring about change. It was an approach in international geopolitics or in foreign affairs that was adopted by certain states or countries as their policy orientation. ठीक है, नाम है, उसके नाम में मूवमेंट शब्द है, बट सोशियोलॉजिकली स्पीकिंग दे आर नॉट सोशल मूवमेंट्स. ठीक है, वेयर वर वी? हाँ, आर सोशल मूवमेंट्स प्राइमोर्डियल इन मीन्स एंड प्रोग्रेसिव इन एजेंडा? पहले तो इस अजीब शर्त का अर्थ क्या होता है? Primordial means very old, simply very old, kind of primitive. All right, unevolved, unadvanced. So primordial in means, when we say social movements are primordial in means, what does it mean? For example, so a lot of what they try to, the ends or the goals are what they try to achieve. How they try to achieve it are the means. For example, many social movements, they invoke primordial identities, or they seek support based on primordial identities. प्राइमोर्डियल आइडेंटिटीज लाइक कास्ट. बहुत सारी कास्ट बेस्ड पब्लिक में मोबिलाइजेशन देखते हो, प्रोटेस्ट एंड एजिटेशंस देखते हो. जाट आंदोलन, मराठा आंदोलन, XYZ आंदोलन, दलित मूवमेंट, all of these are caste based movements. You can have people being mobilized for on the basis of religious identity, racial identity, what the Black Lives Matter movement does. Yes or no? Tribal identity. We've had several ethnic movements mobilizing tribals as a community, like the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha movement, mobilize the tribals of central India. Yes or no? So they often invoke primordial identities. They also often rely upon, networks, social networks based on primordial ties. These movements often rely upon social networks based upon primordial ties. अब मैं जाट आंदोलन कर रहा हूं कि जाट रिजर्वेशन होनी चाहिए. मैं हूं मतलब ऑल इंडिया जाट महासभा, that fictitious slash partly real organization in my head. All right. So if the All India Jat Mahasabha wants to galvanize Jats, what will I do? How will I have people's participation? I will tell my relatives. So I will bank on my kinship network. My kin are who? Jats. And their relatives are who? Jats. So I say the word will kind of reach everyone in the Jat Samaj that we need to be present at X place on Y date with lut and whatever, right? I mean, prepared. Yes or no? So caste, community, kinship networks को हम mobilize करेंगे भीड़ इकट्ठी करने के लिए, पैसे इकट्ठे करने के लिए. चंदा कहां से आएगा? मुझे बनिए देंगे, जाट सी देंगे अगर जाट आंदोलन करना है तो. ठीक है ना? अपने व्हाट्सएप पे डीपी कौन डालेगा कि जाट समाज जिंदाबाद? बनिए डालेंगे, जाट ही डालेंगे. ठीक है? तो वी विल यूज सच प्राइमोर्डियल मीन्स like social networks based on primordial identities, mobilizing people based on these, or in fact even invoking primordial fears. Invoking primordial fears कि अगर हमें XYZ नहीं मिला तो क्या होगा? हमारा कल्चर खत्म हो जाएगा, हमारी लिंग्विस्टिक डिस्टिंक्टिवनेस खत्म हो जाएगी. We as a people or a group will be wiped out, so on and so forth. That is what, for example, the Pakistan movement did. It claimed that Muslims in a Hindu majority united India, Islamic culture will be kind of subsumed within the broader fabric of Bharatiya or Hindu culture. Yes or no? So Islamic identity, Islamic culture, Muslims will not get anything. इस्लाम और मुसलमान दोनों खत्म हो जाएंगे या दबा दिए जाएंगे इन यूनाइटेड भारत. सच काइंड ऑफ प्राइमोर्डियल फियर्स आर रेज्ड. ठीक है? सो मीन्स इनके क्या होते हैं? प्राइमोर्डियल. बट एजेंडा जो होता है वो होता है प्रोग्रेसिव. बट सोशल मूवमेंट्स हैव they are primordial in their means but progressive in their agenda. मतलब what is it that they are trying to achieve by mobilizing people along the lines of caste, kinship, ethnicity? It is typically modern benefits. हमें क्या चाहिए? हमें चाहिए participation in the politico administrative system. Yes or no? हम चाहते हैं हमारी जात बिरादरी का नाम ओबीसी में आ जाए, so that जाट के बच्चे आए in IAS, in IPS more. Are you with me? So we want reservation for government jobs. We want access to modern education. We don't have enough Jats in the IITs. We want, I mean, don't take it personally, fellow not fellow, but dear Jats. Okay, it is just in a manner of speaking. We want modern education. We want, in many cases, political power. For example, statehood demands. When tribals have tried to secure statehood for Jharkhand, the idea was that in a part of a united Bihar, Jharkhand kiska tha? Bihar, hai na? So in united Bihar, the Jharkhand was neglected in terms of development. Roads nahi ban rahi thi, infrastructure nahi tha, and so on and so forth. Though it is a resource-rich region. So we want such kind of infrastructure. So if those who are from the region of Jharkhand or Telangana more recently, yes or no, if they are in control of the state machinery, then they can ensure that the resources of this region will be used for its own development. Are you with me? Many of these movements, like the Dalit right movement, demand rights of equality, freedom. Yes or no? Dignity. ये सारे कैसे हैं? प्रोग्रेसिव एजेंडा है, मॉडर्न आउटलुक से अलाइनिंग एजेंडा है. तो हमारे मीन्स बेशक प्राइमोडियल होंगे, बट हमारी डिमांड्स आर मोस्टली प्रोग्रेसिव. यस और नो? यस और नो? नो. Or shall I say, not necessarily so. It is not necessary, or we cannot make an unqualified statement that always and forever in all social movements means are primordial and agenda is progressive. It can also be the other way around. It can also be the other way around. Many social movements do not necessarily try to mobilize people along primordial identities. Many movements mobilize people around modern identities. LGBTQIA plus plus plus. Yes or no? So it's a modern identity or a joining factor to mobilize people based on sexual orientation. Right? Even the working class movement mobilizes people across which identity? Based on modern occupation as factory workers, irrespective of your caste, class, gender, fender. Yes or no? Cutting across primordial identities, people are mobilized by the working class movement, by the LGBT movement, based on these modern identities. Are you with me? इसी तरह agenda may not necessarily and always be progressive. Agenda can also be opposite of progressive, bolo, regressive. Some movements, for example, fundamentalist movements, revivalist movements, ये क्या करती हैं? कैसा समाज चाहिए हमें? They try to, in certain ways, critics would say they try to take the samaj back, to create or recreate a, past golden age when the religion and society were in pure or pristine form. Are you with me? There can be reactionary movements which try to stall progressive change. तो अगर ब्रह्मो समाज और आर्य समाज कह रही थी नहीं, महिलाओं पे मत करो जो भी कर रहे हो ये अत्याचार, सती या all kinds of शोषण, there were movements that were conservative, that were against such demands of a Brahmo Samaj or Arya Samaj. There was this Akhil Bharatiya Dharm Sabha, okay, or something of the sort. ठीक है ना? So movements can also stall progressive change. They can be revivalist. They can be reactionary. So this is our overall take on that social movements are primordial in means and progressive in agenda. ब्रेक नहीं दूंगा अभी आयुषी एंड अदर्स, ठीक है, वेट, टॉपिक खत्म करके दूंगा. सो सिट टाइट, डोंट रेज योर होप्स ऑन दिस एस्पेक्ट. ठीक है, अब बताइए मुझे अबाउट रेवोल्यूशन. रेवोल्यूशन क्या होता है? नॉट थ्योरेटिकली और एकेडमिकली और सोशियोलॉजिकली. हैव यू हर्ड दिस वर्ड रेवोल्यूशन इन इंग्लिश, इन एनी कॉन्टेक्स्ट? अर्थ क्या है? कलेक्टिव एक्शन फॉर रैपिड चेंज. वेरी किताबी, रटी रटाई काइंड ऑफ एन एक्सप्लेनेशन. यूज ऑफ वायलेंस. एक सेकेंड, रेवोल्यूशन आपने बोला, क्या बोला था बेटे? कलेक्टिव एक्शन फॉर रैपिड चेंज. तो सुनो ना, अरे आपने बोला ये रैपिड होता है, हाँ, और बिटिया वायलेंट होता है, स्पॉन्टेनियस होता है, और बताइए, कंप्लीट ओवरऑल होता है, और एनीथिंग एल्स ब्रदर? फ्रॉम द रेवोल्यूशन ऑफ अ व्हील और अ, हाँ, सब कुछ चेंज हो जाएगा, है ना? और अ कंप्लीट चेंज इज परहैप्स व्हाट यू सीम टू बी सजेस्टिंग. और बताइए, लाइकनिंग इट टू द रेवोल्यूशन ऑफ अ व्हील. एनीथिंग एल्स? रैडिकल होता है. रैडिकल शब्द का क्या अर्थ होता है बेटी? सॉरी, हिंदी में बोले तो अति कर देते हैं ये लोग, है ना? ऑलराइट, द अति पीपल. आंखी सेइंग रिबेलियस होते हैं. और बताइए, हु सेड? वाइड स्प्रेड होते हैं. क्या मतलब? अच्छा, आई एम नॉट एंडोर्सिंग दीज, ओके, आई एम जस्ट नोटिंग डाउन व्हाट यू गाइज आर सजेस्टिंग. ह्यूज चेंज, तिरुपति सिंह ह्यूज, लेट्स राइट ह्यूज एज वेल. ओके, ill structured होते हैं, you saying? Why do you say that in the sense ill structured? मतलब they cannot be predicted and they are very, they're a surprise, you're saying, huh? They're kind of surprise. In that sense you meant ill structured. Okay, they're surprising. Okay, huh, so that has been mentioned in some language or the other, है ना? चलिए अब मुझे बताइए, give me example of any revolution from India. Green revolution. One sec, now I'll do that magic thing. Sorry, अच्छा वायलेंट होते हैं. वन सेक, वायलेंट लिखा है हमने इसमें? हाँ लिखा है. ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन. अच्छा, टेल मी फ्रेंड्स, हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू थिंक द ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन वाज अ रेवोल्यूशन? लाइक सर, नाम ही काफी है. रेज योर हैंड्स इफ यू थिंक द ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन वाज. ओके, हाउ अबाउट the revolt of 1857? Can that be considered a revolution? Yes or no? Raise your hands, those who say the 1857 revolt was a revolution. Raise your hands. Raise your hands if you think it was not a revolution. You guys are so non-committal. Come on. So you guys don't think it was a revolution. Okay. How about the attainment of freedom, the end of colonial rule, or the freedom movement? Can that be considered a revolution? Yes or no? थोड़ा अगर हम क्रोनोलॉजिकली जा रहे हैं, हाँ है ना? अच्छा, और हाँ, तो ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन, यस और नो? सोचिए इनके बारे में. हाउ अबाउट द फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन, द इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन, industrial revolution, the freedom movement culminating in independence, the mutiny. How about, tell me friends, the historic mandate that without Modi ji there is no sociology, that the BJP and its allies received in 2014, and for the first time a right-wing government coming to power at the center with full majority, and having a stable government after a gap of 3 decades. No? How about time wise hi chalein kya? That's a lot of pressure. The Bolshevik Revolution. It is. How about the ousting of Sheikh Hasina? Sheikh Hasina has been ousted, right? हाँ, in Bangladesh. कब की बात है? 2024. And Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus becoming the head of Bangladesh. Farmers' protests against the farm bills. Passed by the Modi government, resulting in the government repealing those laws. Brahmo Samaj, which led to abolition of sati and public mobilization against the practice. Which of these, friends, would you say? How about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, leading to construction of toilets for 2/3 of India's population in a span of 5 to 7 years? Till 2014, about 1/3 of the population had access to toilets, and in the next 5 years, by 2019, coverage of 100% was achieved. How about the passage of Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam? Yes? इनमें से कौन से रेवोल्यूशन है, अब आप बताइए. वन सेक. ये छोटा नहीं हो रहा. चलिए, स्टार्टिंग विद दिस. मॉरल ऑफ द स्टोरी एक बार छोटा करते फिर बार बार नहीं कर सकते, है ना? चलिए, फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन, इज इट अ रेवोल्यूशन? यस और नो? आई एम जस्ट मार्किंग, आई एम नॉट अग्रीइंग बाय द वे. इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन, रेवोल्यूशन और नो? एक आध और चीज लिख देता हूं, याद आई. यूपीआई adoption in India, right? Digitizing transactions. Poonam Singh from real estate company keeps on calling. Very this thing. If we can find a way to get rid of such calls and messages, will that be a revolution? 1857. What Savarkar defined as India's first war of independence was. One sec, guys. I need to spend some time with with the phone, guys. Huh? बताइए. The first war of Indian independence. No. ये क्या है? हाँ, Bolshevik revolution. Freedom movement. Freedom movement. Any takers, any buyers for the freedom movement? Raise your hands. Rest. Those who say no to the freedom movement as a revolution, raise your hands. So most of you say no. Okay. Green revolution. Yes. What is the majority voice? I want to hear a clear yes or clear no. Like voiceful. Huh? Yes or no? ठीक है. That reminds me, for that matter, white revolution. और भी बहुत सारे हुए. Pink. येलो भी है. मस्टर्ड. ऑयल का. ब्लू किस चीज का? ब्लू इज फिश का. पिंक इज मीट. और ब्राउन किस चीज का है? अच्छा. We'll run out of colors this way. In any case, all of these you say. What about the white revolution? Making India, guys. Making India one of the largest producers of milk. Pink. Yes or no? To increase meat production. Yes or no? Very few. Chota. Yes. Chota take. Yellow. Mustard oil or whatever oil in general. Oil seeds. Blue क्या था? Blue revolution लिख देता हूं, lest it be misinterpreted. Marine उसका. हाँ. So it is yes or no? Yes कह रहे हैं. ठीक है. 2014 में क्या हुआ? हाँ, मोदी जी. The outcome of the 2014 general elections? No? Okay. Hasina in 2024? Yes or no? No? क्यों? ठीक है, चलो, for now. Leadership तो change होगी. Farmers protest against farm bills? Farmers protests? No? ये क्या है? अच्छा, let us do this. यहाँ के सारे. हाँ, नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम? No? Okay. I thought it was a very historic bill, giving women 1/3, blah blah. Yeah, seats in legislatures, but no. Okay. Where are we? Brahmo Samaj? No. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan? I tried a real hard sell. Didn't seem to work. Now, these are only students' responses, by the way. These are not necessarily correct. ठीक? Let us see what a revolution is. नहीं. हाँ, UPI कहाँ है? ये रहा. UPI, you guys are saying is revolutionary. ठीक है. Or the digitization of the economy, whatever you want to call it, you're saying that is a revolution. Now, what is a revolution, friends? The, should I say, defining criteria of a revolution is that it leads to change. क्या? Change तो मैं आज कपड़े बदल लूं, वो भी एक change है. By the, really? But that's not a revolution, right? It is near total change. Total or near total change of the social order. You know, these words like violence, rapidity, these are often associated with a revolution, but they are not necessarily or always a part of a revolution. In other words, oftentimes revolutions do use force or do threaten the use of force. But can revolutionary change be peaceful? Yes, it can be. It has been historically. All right. So violence can be there, is often there, but not necessarily there as part of a revolution. So revolution, first and foremost, or most importantly, means that there is a complete, or shall I say total, change of the prevailing social, economic and political systems. पूरी व्यवस्था परिवर्तित हो जाती है. When I say a revolution is complete or total, it means no aspect of social life, almost no aspect of social life remains untouched by a revolution. A revolution brings about a very fundamental shift in the way people live. It is not mere tinkering with this or that aspect of the system. It is not any small change, even if progressive, beneficial, or whatever. But any small change does not make a revolution. Are you with me? So that is the touchstone upon which you have to decide whether any event can be considered as a revolution or not. Everything else is secondary. It is that the change is complete or total, which is what essentially makes a revolution. Everything else is secondary. Can the French Revolution be regarded a revolution in that sense? The answer is yes. Industrial Revolution? Yes. The first war of Indian independence? No. Clearly, it was not a revolution. The socio-political system basically remained the same. And very bluntly, truth be told, no matter how inspiring, the mutiny was crushed. Yes or no? Freedom from British rule? No. Please appreciate, it cannot be considered a revolution in the sociological or political science sense of the term. The system of caste inequality, the way it was before and after independence, क्या वो खत्म हो गया? नहीं. Gender inequality खत्म हो गई? नहीं. Are you with me? Heck, even the constitutional legal framework governing our society, it was largely a continuation from the colonial period. आपका जो constitution है अच्छा नहीं लगेगा, परंतु it was largely in good measure, it was the Government of India Act of 1935. Pre-colonial laws, including the IPC, CRPC, they were continued till recently. So there was, it was a very peaceful transfer of power from British hands to Brown Sahibs, Gora Sahibs to Brown Sahibs, from the British rulers to the Indian elites. Are you with me? आपका जो सिविल सर्विसेज का ढांचा है वो सेम, सब कुछ सेम. कहां गया? हाँ, तो दिस कैन नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड अ revolution. Green revolution and the other revolutions, pink, blue, what have you, revolution or not? No. Please appreciate, not denying the success or impact of these revolutions. Of course, the Green Revolution was very, very important for India. From nation dependent on imports of substandard food grains, we became self-sufficient in food grain production. So food grain production increased manifold thanks to agricultural modernization, HYV seeds and what have you. बट क्या उससे पूरी सोशो पॉलिटिकल एंड इकोनॉमिक व्यवस्था बदल गई? नहीं. So despite the nomenclature, it is not a revolution in the, or these are not revolutions in the sociological sense of the term. All right? No. Modi's victory, not a revolution. Hasina's ouster, not a revolution. Farmers' protests, not a revolution. Brahmo Samaj, not a revolution. Swachh Bharat, not a revolution. Impactful, successful, but not revolution. Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, not a revolution. कहां गया? UPI? No. Please appreciate the term revolution, it has to be, or revolutions are very, very rare events in world history. So you don't throw the term revolution too casually or indiscriminately. Skocpol कहते हैं revolutions are very, very rare and transformative events. These are rare and transformative events. लिखा भी होगा आपके उसमें हैंडआउट में, देखो लिखा है क्या ये? That fundamentally alter, कहां गया? That fundamentally alter the prevailing social, economic and political structures, challenge dominant ideologies and transform the state apparatus. ठीक है? टोटल चेंज या कंप्लीट चेंज या नियर कंप्लीट चेंज इनकी वजह से आता है. रेवोल्यूशंस में कौन सी आइडियोलॉजी बहुत विश्वास रखती है? मार्क्सिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी. मार्क्सिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी emphasizes upon the inevitability of the proletariat revolution. कि होगा ही होगा. लेनिन, जानते हैं ना हम सब लेनिन को? लेनिन wrote, friends, please write, revolutions, लिखा है क्या? Revolutions are festivals of the oppressed. These are festivals of the oppressed who act as creators of a new social order. Are you with me? So Lenin is celebrating in a way. Look at the very language. It is celebratory. Right? Sorokin. लिखा है? Sorokin, however, compares revolutions to a severe social illness which can lead to कैंसर जैसी होती है रेवोल्यूशन, एड्स जैसा होता है रेवोल्यूशन. क्या होता है इनसे? मृत्यु. which can lead to the sudden death of the social organism. अर्थात Sorokin is expressing a kind of mistrust of revolutions, that the changes they bring about are too much, too soon, and they are completely disrupting the existing ways of life. They are very disruptive, so it can lead to widespread chaos. Therefore, so Sorokin basically prefers which kind of change? Reforms, reformist, incremental, peaceful, piecemeal kind of change. So revolution ke bajaye, instead of revolutions, societies should undergo gradual and incremental progress or changes. ठीक है? Aryan is asking, Sheikh Hasina's ouster changed the structure of Bangladesh government. Isn't it revolutionary? One, please appreciate any change only or confined to the political system is not a revolution. For example, one government, one party throwing another out of power in elections. That's a very routine affair. तो चाहे मोदी प्राइम मिनिस्टर हो या मनमोहन सिंह हो या वीपी सिंह हो या नरसिम्हा राव हो या इंदिरा गांधी हो, the broad system of governance etc remains the same. इसी तरह बांग्लादेश में, yes, it was a violent ouster, but did even the structure of governance change fundamentally? No. Large to a very good extent continuity there. Are you with me? Even if the for example in Pakistan we continuously see democratically elected governments being ousted by military rulers. That is not a revolution, that's merely a military coup. The mutiny is bagawat. Routine. Routine. Huh? The point is it's a military coup, but so there's a transfer or shift of power away from the civilian leadership to the military top brass, but that's not a revolution. So a military coup, a rebellion, a change in change of hands, a shift of power from one set of elites to another, not revolutions. Are you with me? And has that change affected or brought about fundamental transformations in the wider society, economy? That is a benchmark that has to be seen. Are you with me? Or based upon which we can assess. So that is about revolutions. Now you've earned yourself a break. Nahi, very short, well deserved break. With this, we are done with the unit on social movements. Please settle down, friends, and quickly. Chaliye. Now, couple of doubts were raised. One was, correct me if I'm wrong, no puja, we are not done with the whole chapter on politics and society. Several things remain. So, kya? One question was raised, why should we not consider UPI as a revolution? Because it has fundamentally, elaborate on your question. Very well. So, if I understand the gist of his argument correctly, he's saying it has had a very wide impact. It has affected society, it has impacted the economy, it has impacted, our day-to-day life. Therefore, he sees it as a revolution, the adoption of UPI. Why I would disagree with that? Because, it may have affected various aspects of our lives, but the changes it has spawned are not total by any stretch. Its impact on various aspects of our lives, but it is, tangentially affecting different aspects of our lives. Even economy, if you consider its main impact is economic, that is the most direct bearing of UPI. Even economic, has it led to a kind of a new economy arising? No. Or a new economy which has, there is one could say that thanks to UPI, there is more formalization of the economy. Transactions have become more seamless. There is very wide scale of adoption of UPI. All of that. It has led to digitization, more people joining the formal banking system and so on and so forth, including small vendors, etc. But does that mean that a kind of a, for example, the industrial revolution, compare it in terms of impact. What was the industrial revolution in contrast? From an agrarian economy, there was a factory-based production system which emerged. From, customized products being made, mass-based production system, quantum, everything. Prices went down, quantum increased manifold. And it's not only economic. Family system changed wholeheartedly. Joint se nuclear. Individualism grew up. New values emerged. Science ka bolbala hua, religion ka decline hua, urbanization hua, people shift villages. So the industrial revolution in contrast was far more impactful. Are you with me? 1 second. Your doubt was that why should we not consider green and white revolutions as revolutions? Because they also led to, what was your point you were saying about Dudwalas?
ओपन इकोनॉमी हुई इंडिया की, जिससे कि इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट बढ़ गए थे, जो पोर्ट एरिया में रहते थे लोग वो फिशरमैन भी बन गए कि चलो इनके ऊपर नहीं रहना पड़ेगा, खुद कमाएं.
So people became more self-employed, etc. Guys, people became, you're saying, more self-employed because of the success of the blue revolution, particularly those in the coastal regions. So with the white revolution is saying that it has resulted in the dudhiyas, the the traditional milk producers and sellers being replaced by factories, large scale plants, etc. like Amul vagera, them being replaced, but then the dudhiyas have found employment. The moot point is, has it led to a complete, near total, fundamental transformation of the way we live? 1 sec. So that is the touchstone. ठीक है? समाज के हर पहलू पे हल्का सा टच अपॉन नहीं, एक बड़ा ही मैसिव और इंपैक्टफुल चेंज देखने को मिलना चाहिए तो रेवोल्यूशन मानेंगे. ठीक है? सो वी डोंट यूज द टर्म रेवोल्यूशन सो lightly or loosely. what we may, if you use this very, you would say, sir, aapki to bahut hi strict definition of revolution hai. That is how it should be used. And agar if we go by this very strict understanding of what a revolution is, people would contend India has not seen yet a revolution. Are you with me? Throughout its long civilizational history, we have not yet undergone a large scale and complete transformation, which took place like in Russia or China or England or the West in general. Are you with me? एक ये बात है. Perhaps one could say that in India or globally, we are in the throes of, in the midst of a digital revolution, but we are not done with it yet. So the full impact of it, the full import of it is not before us. It's still a work in progress. That also brings us to that point of immediacy and speed. Though this word revolution rings up, images of कि बस उठ खड़े हुए और सर कटल कर दिया, सर काट दिया और सत्ता पलट कर दिया. There is that sense of urgency and speed associated with revolutions, but they are not necessarily this thing. For example, the Industrial Revolution, no violence, spawning several decades altogether. Yes or no? Yes, there are revolutions like the Bolshevik Revolution which were quicker, right? But then there can be some, likewise the digital revolution, the AI revolution, if you want to prophesize, it will have a transformative revolutionary impact, then these are taking their own sweet time, right? This is not a one day or a one-off affair. Chaliye, moving on. On that note, moving on. Okay? To other aspects of politics and society. There are certain concepts that we need to understand. The concept of state, nation. Have you heard these terms? State. Is the state the same as a nation? Yes or no? No. What does state mean? Does it mean, acha, India is a state or a nation? Or both? Or neither? Both. Okay, he's saying it's a state nation. A more appropriate term is nation state. Okay? नेशन स्टेट होगा अगर एक ही नेशन के लोग आके, ठीक है, वी विल graduate to that point of discussion as we proceed. So, state क्या होती है? ठीक है, absolutely. So you guys seem to be pretty much in the know of what a state is. It is a political legal entity which has 4 characteristics. Four characteristics of a state. पहली तो होती है टेरिटरी. एक डेफिनेशन भी लिख लो पहले स्टेट की. According to Weber, the state is a political community that successfully claims monopoly. The state is a political community that successfully claims monopoly over the use of physical force, डंडे की ताकत, over the use of physical force within a given territory. ठीक? So state has 4 defining characteristics, namely पहला territory. टेरिटरी क्या होती है? टेरिटरी of a state comprises of land, water and air. Under its jurisdiction or in its jurisdiction. All right? कितनी टेरिटरी चाहिए? अगर हमें एक स्टेट, देखो स्टेट का, by the way, the term state in political science, we are not using it in the sense of, the state of Haryana or the state of Tamil Nadu. We are using it in the sense of the Indian state, the Pakistan state, like that. So roughly, the term state means an independent country. In normal parlance, what we consider an independent country is what constitutes a state in political sociology. Clear? तो हमें एक कंट्री बनाना है, मान लीजिए कैलासा नाम का. ओके, सो पहले तो हमें कुछ टेरिटरी चाहिए होगी. सो लेट्स गो ऑन अ हंट एंड परचेज सम आइलैंड, राइट? सो कितनी जमीन लेनी पड़ेगी हमें? व्हाट इज द मिनिमम टेरिटरी रिक्वायरमेंट टू कॉन्स्टिट्यूट अ स्टेट? पॉपुलेशन पे आऊंगा ना, बट टेरिटरी पे कैन यू डू एनी टिप्पणी? Any comment on how much territory will be required to constitute an independent state? No, as in पता नहीं, या it doesn't matter? हाँ, साफ बात है, it is not fixed. States can be very, very small sized, like the Vatican City. Okay, you have many city states. Vatican City is smaller than Karol Bagh. ठीक है, spread over a few square kilometers. They can be so small in size, and they can be very, very large sized also, spread over hundreds and lakhs of square kilometers. You know of any states which have that large territory? Russia? Anything closer at heart and hand? India? Bilkul. China? हाँ, Chinese लड़की. But yeah, these are what? These are states with very, very large territories. ठीक? दूसरी हमें चाहिए people या population. कितने लोग चाहिए देश बनाने को? हम लोग इतने लोग काफी हैं एक देश बनाने को? बिल्कुल काफी हैं. Again, there is no defined criteria as to what should be the population of a state, but there should be a stable population. All right? Third aspect is sovereignty. Sovereignty means that the state has absolute power to take decisions governing the lives of the people in its territory or under its jurisdiction. It is not answerable to any outside power. There is no power higher than. What about the United Nations? Does it compromise the sovereignty of the member nation states? No, absolutely not. It is more like a deliberative platform and not a world government of sorts. ठीक है ना? Also, please appreciate internally its power is accepted or not challenged. Are you with me? So there is no higher power outside or inside. Sovereignty has both an external and an internal dimension. All right. So Haryana, is it a state in this sense? No, it is not. India, is it a state? Yes, it is. Okay. And finally, government. Government is what? Government, friends, is the visible manifestation of the state. Please appreciate. So when we say the Indian state has declared a war against Pakistan, it means what? Who has declared? Me? No, the government of India has declared a war against Pakistan. So on behalf of India, who is taking decisions of the Indian state? It is the government of India which is taking decisions. So the powers of the state are enjoyed by the government. The functions of the state are performed by the government. For example, we say that in modern times, we have a welfare state. The state performs welfare functions. And one, older function has always been, what is the most primary function of the state? Law and order. Maintaining law and order. So who maintains law and order? The government maintains law and order. The government provisions for education, healthcare, and so on. या welfare functions हो गए, law and order maintenance हो गए. कौन करेगा? Government करेगी. So government is like the, manifestation or expression of state. Clear? एक और एलिमेंट है जो somewhat contested है. कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि होना चाहिए an essential attribute of a state, कुछ नहीं मानते. क्या? No, popular sovereignty as in the people's consent. हाँ, बिल्कुल. So using the wrong phraseology, if you're calling it popular sovereignty, I will simply say international recognition. International recognition. सिंपल टर्म्स में फ्रेंड्स, कुछ लोगों का मानना है, जो बोलते हैं रिकॉग्निशन शुड बी अ क्राइटेरिया दैट आप कंट्री हो कब? जब बाकी देश या इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी माने कि आप कंट्री हो. आर यू विद मी? सो हाउ इज इंटरनेशनल रिकॉग्निशन ऑन टू अ स्टेट ग्रांटेड? अभी रिसेंटली चल रहा है, फ्रांस हैज सेड वी विल एक्नॉलेज द स्टेट ऑफ पैलेस्टीन, एंड दैट हैज ruffled feathers in the western countries which have conventionally been pro-Israel and not at least acknowledging the state of Palestine. Are you with me? तो अगर कोई दूसरे देश आपके कंट्री में एम्बेसी खुला लें, अपने देशों में आपकी एम्बेसी खुला लें, तो ये क्या हो गया? इट्स अ फॉर्म ऑफ इंटरनेशनल रिकॉग्निशन. मेंबरशिप ऑफ इंटरनेशनल बॉडीज लाइक यूनाइटेड नेशंस जनरल असेंबली में विद द पावर टू वोट अगर आपको मिल जाए, दैट इज एन रिकॉग्निशन एज अ मेंबर स्टेट. Yes or no? So these are forms. So कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि इंटरनेशनल रिकॉग्निशन होगा तभी आप माने जाओगे, वरना तो कोई भी कैलासा खोल के बैठ जाएगा. या अभी वो एक जैन साहब मिले हैं गाजियाबाद में, कुछ वो एम्बेसी खोल के बैठे थे, खुद ही पे अपने अपने टाइटल्स डाल लिए, बढ़िया बढ़िया, है ना? हाँ, फेक कंट्री के फेक टाइटल्स. तो बाकी लोग मानेंगे तभी आप माने जाओगे. अदर्स से कि नहीं, irrespective of whether the international community recognizes or not, if you have these four things, if you have a clear territory over which you enjoy sovereignty and a people you can lord over, boss over, don't say boss over, but upon which your jurisdiction extends, and a government to fulfill the functions of the state, to, enjoy the powers of the state, then you constitute a state. ठीक है? तो ये होती है स्टेट. अब आ जाओ नेशन पे. Ankhi is saying, but it is in the hands of the government how a state is recognized internationally. It also depends on international geopolitics, power equations. So, for example, a lot of separatist movements, when they declare themselves as, for example, the Tamil, nationalists in Sri Lanka, who were striving to establish a Tamil Elam or a separate Tamil state. They were trying to seek international recognition. Norway se, idhar se, and so on and so forth. Khalistan movement, seeking international recognition. A lot of these separatist movements, वो यही करती हैं कि अगर उन्होंने बाकियों ने मान लिया, तो हम हो जाएंगे एक नया देश. And during the Cold War, it was, the East-West divide basically informed state recognition. If any country would break away from declare independence from Soviet Union or one of its allies, the US and the West will rush to grant recognition. फिर वो लोग कहते थे नहीं नहीं ये country नहीं है, and vice versa. Are you with me? चलिए कहां चले? Nation. Nation क्या होता है? Brother, ideology is not the best word to use for it, with due respect. Bitya, it is a feeling. Wonderfully captured. Absolutely, it is a feeling. कैसी feeling? कैसा एहसास? तो नेशन एक एहसास है. कैसा एहसास है बिटिया? Absolutely, a feeling of oneness. You're also right, a feeling of belonging together. Please लिखिए. A nation is a feeling of oneness, when a people are psychologically united. When a people are psychologically united. Full stop. The term nation refers to a historically constituted stable community of people a historically constituted stable community of people. What is the basis of this unity, by the way, or this feeling of oneness? एक एक करके बिटिया. Same culture. Can you delve deeper into what precisely? Culture is a too broad term. What aspects of culture could unify a people who constitute a nation? It could be religion, brother, language, past experiences, absolutely, or a shared historical experiences. Huh? Bilkul. Civilizational ethos, absolutely, friends. Yes, and there is this element of, territoriality there. Shared norms and values and beliefs. Very well. Please write down. क्या लिखा है last बिटिया? Stable community of people formed on the basis of a common language, territory, economic life, एंड साइकोलॉजिकल मेकअप सोच एक जैसी है. मैनिफेस्टेड इन अ कॉमन कल्चर. मैनिफेस्टेड इन अ कॉमन कल्चर. ठीक है. सेज हु? स्टालिन. यू नो स्टालिन गाय? ही वाज लेनिन का पोता इन अ मैनर ऑफ स्पीकिंग. मतलब रशियन, a Soviet leader. Okay. Clear? From where you've written, after the first sentence, a nation refers to wala, that is Stalin's, how Stalin defines a nation. So, very briefly, जो state है. Now, is a state also a nation? Is a nation also a state? It could be, not necessarily. Absolutely. The two are conceptually different. The state is a politico-legal entity. The state is a politico-legal concept. Nation is a psychological and emotional concept. ठीक है. सिंपली पुट, नेशन है एक फीलिंग ऑफ वननेस. स्टेट क्या है? मोटा मोटी जिसको हम एक इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्री बोलते हैं आज. एंड व्हेन द टू कोइंसाइड वी कॉल इट अ नेशन स्टेट. सो नेशन स्टेट क्या है? व्हेन नेशनल बाउंड्रीज कोइंसाइड विद स्टेट बाउंड्रीज. दैट्स अ नेशन स्टेट. क्या मतलब हुआ? यानी when a people who feel they are one, when they constitute an independent sovereign country, that is a nation state. When people who feel one, when they have an independent country, that is a nation state. Historically, friends, if we go into now ye nation states, when we use the term nation states, it means there can be non-nation states, or there can be states which are not nations. Nation states are a relatively recent development in world history. Nation states emerged after the Treaty of Westphalia in Europe. Treaty of Westphalia 17th, mid 17th century में हुई थी. 1648 if I remember the year correctly. Am I correct? Sure? Thank you. So it was in the aftermath of the Treaty of Westphalia, and during the 18th to 20th centuries, that several nation states emerged in Europe. Nation states emerged in Europe following the Treaty of Westphalia, particularly during 18th to 20th centuries. Before nation states, other forms of states होते थे. Let us say ये हमारा यूरोप है. Okay? So, before the emergence of nation states, what we had? We had empires. Empires मतलब एक राजा होता था, monarch, king या ruling dynasty, whose sovereignty would extend over vast territories populated by various peoples. Various peoples. Are you with me? So that ruler, it was a non-nation state. An empire was a, or what we can call a multi-nation state. Multiple nations would be contained within or under the rule of a single emperor or ruler. These were multi-nation states. So let us say the Ottoman Empire, यहां तक उसकी वो होगी ठाट नहीं sovereignty. ठीक है. Austro-Hungarian Empire, उसकी sovereignty. And so on and so forth. Now, when we say nation states emerged, मतलब क्या हुआ? These multi-nation empires broke up and gave way to nation states. Nation states मतलब one people who shared a similar culture and therefore felt that we are one people. They established their independent countries. Let us say, hypothetical, okay, I am not too good with history. Let us say over this territory are residing people who speak French, who eat French food, who follow the French culture, rituals, dress, and so on and so forth. Now these French people or the French nation, earlier they were governed under different empires. They now declared that formation of nation states, it shows, is a messy affair, right? So these guys declared that we are an independent country. So France emerged as a nation state. Similarly, the Italian speaking people, you get the drift, right? Or nahi? The Italian speaking, Italian eating, Italian culturing people declared an independent country of Italy, and so on and so forth. The Polish declared Poland. Hungarians declared Hungary, and so on. And the German speaking, German eating, German culture, German breed, I don't know why, all of those people, right, they constituted Germany. So thus emerged nation states, where the people were unified based on some shared element of culture, and they constituted an independent country. Clear? ये है emergence of nation states. What is nationalism? Related term? क्या है nationalism? क्या इंडिया में हुआ है नेशनलिज्म? क्या होता है? Brother, it is an ideology, absolutely, that draws upon the feeling of oneness, है ना? बिल्कुल. लिखिए. Millie is asking, are all nations states? The answer is no. All nations are not states. Sometimes some nations or peoples are spread across several states, right? For example, Kurds. They want to constitute a country of Kurdistan, but presently they are spread across parts of Iraq here and there. Are you with me? So they don't have a nation state. Where were we? Nationalism. So nationalism is a political principle and a sentiment. It's a political principle and sentiment which considers that political boundaries and national boundaries must coincide. Nationalism involves, next sentence, nationalism involves a strong emotional connect with the people who constitute the nation and seeks to promote their interests. And seeks to promote their interest. So what we have understood, friends, from European history, nationalism became popular in Europe and eventually led to the formation of various nation states. ठीक? Now, what about us? अच्छा, एक पहले नेशन को लेके ना बेनेडिक्ट एंडरसन है, वेरी कोटवर्दी. बेनेडिक्ट एंडरसन terms nations, he says that a nation is an imagined community. Nations are imagined communities. Benedict Anderson. Imagined communities. Nations are imagined communities. Arthat, what's a community? Community is this close-knit, small-scale group of people with a lot of, intimacy, emotional connect, like we say village community, tribal community, right? So a small group of people having close, intimate ties, regular interactions, face-to-face interactions is what constitutes a community. A community is characterized by what some have termed as the we feeling, or a feeling of oneness, of belonging, a strong sense of belonging and attachment. That is what characterizes a community. In nations also, do we have a strong sense of belonging and attachment? That is what defines a nation. It is that feeling of unity or oneness. But is there regular face-to-face interaction in these nations? Is the size of the population small? No. So without having regular face-to-face interaction, without having intimate relations with the other members, you don't know the other members in the nation because the nation is very large, these modern nations. Yet there is that strong feeling of attachment or belonging or oneness. Yes or no? इसीलिए क्या बोलते हैं? Imagined communities. Nations are imagined communities. So what is that, how many of you will call yourselves as nationalists or have a strong sense of attachment to the Indian nation? Otherwise, you are anti-national. So keeping that aside, so when you say you have a strong sense of attachment, this is without knowing. Now, India is a country of 100 crore plus people. You don't know, much of the masses are for you nameless and faceless, yet you have that sense of strong attachment. That is why it is an imagined community. Yes or no? Your eyes swell up, you get emotional when you think of the Indian nation. It is that emotional connect. लिखिए, Anderson suggests that the erstwhile small-sized communities have been replaced by large-sized nations governed by impersonal bureaucracies. Full stop. Though regular and personal interaction amongst its members is not really present, yet there is a strong feeling of oneness or attachment. ठीक? I think that should be enough, lest you are driven to revolution.